This video explores complex emotional dynamics and mature themes involving adult relationships. It does not contain any explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised. I was half asleep, the soft buzz of the fan lulling me into that strange in-between state where dreams bleed into reality. Then I heard it, my bedroom door creaked open. No knock. No warning. Just the sound of someone stepping inside. I sat up, confused and a little irritated. Hello? And there she was, Emily. My stepdaughter. 23, sharp-witted, usually guarded, and not the type to show up unannounced, especially not here. She stood in the doorway in a hoodie and leggings, barefoot, her arms crossed tight like she was holding herself together. I blinked. Is everything okay? She didn't speak right away. Just stared at me. Eyes glassy but focused, like she was trying to work something out. Emily moved in with us after her mom and I got married 3 years ago. Back then, we had a cold truce at best. She was polite but distant. I figured that was normal, she'd already been through a lot. Her dad passed when she was 15. She kept her walls up high, and I respected that. I gave her space. Over the years, things thawed. Small moments, helping her with her car, late-night kitchen talks when she couldn't sleep, laughing at bad movies. But there were still lines we didn't cross. Boundaries. This, her walking into my room like this, was a breach of all of them. Emily, what's going on? I asked again, softer this time. She finally looked at me, not through me, not around me. At me. Can we talk? Her voice cracked on the last word. Now I was wide awake. Yeah. Of course. Sit. She hesitated, then walked in and sat on the edge of the bed, her posture stiff. I could feel something churning under her calm exterior. She kept looking at the floor, picking at the sleeve of her hoodie. There was a long silence. Then she said something that changed everything. I won't repeat it here, not yet. But I can tell you this, it made me rethink every assumption I had about our relationship. About the past 3 years. About who she thought I was, and what she needed from me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even shocked. I was stunned. And I didn't know what to say. Because sometimes the real story doesn't start with a dramatic moment. It starts with a knock that never comes. With a question you didn't expect. With someone standing in your doorway, unsure if they're breaking something or saving it. This is one of those stories. And it only gets more complicated from here. She didn't say anything for a long time. Just sat there, barely breathing, eyes fixed on the floor like it held the answers. I stayed quiet too. I've learned over the years that silence can be its own kind of support, especially when someone's deciding whether to let their guard down or walk away. Emily wasn't someone who opened up easily. Not to me, not to anyone. Even her mother, Julia, had told me once, she's tough because she had to be. Life didn't really ask her if she was ready for it. That stuck with me. I'd tried to respect that toughness, never pushed too hard, never tried to replace anyone. But now she was here, in my room, after midnight, looking like she'd come face to face with something she didn't know how to carry alone. I don't even know where to start, she said finally, her voice a whisper. Wherever you want, I replied. I meant it. She looked up at me then, really looked. Her face was pale, jaw clenched tight. You remember my dad's old friend? Mark? I nodded slowly. I didn't know the guy well, but he'd come up in stories. A work buddy of her father's, someone who used to come around when she was a kid. One of those peripheral characters you never expect to be important. Well, she said, swallowing hard. He reached out. On Instagram. Said he saw one of my posts and wanted to catch up. Said he missed seeing me around. Something twisted in my gut. I didn't like the sound of it. Did you talk to him? She nodded, slowly. At first, I thought it was nothing. Just nostalgia, I guess. I mean, he used to take me and Dad fishing sometimes. I trusted him. Or at least, I did. And now? Emily shifted on the bed, crossing her arms tighter. Now I'm not sure what I remember and what I tried to forget. That stopped me cold. The room got quieter, somehow. The fan still hummed, and the streetlights outside threw soft gold lines across the floor, but it felt like everything paused. I think something happened back then, she said, eyes still avoiding mine. Something I didn't understand. But talking to him now, it's like this old feeling came back. And it's eating at me. Like I've been carrying something that never had a name. My first instinct was anger. Not at her, but at the thought that someone from her childhood, someone she trusted, might have crossed a line she wasn't old enough to define. But I pushed that down. This moment wasn't about me. I didn't know who else to tell, she said. Mom's been going through so much with her health lately. And you? I don't know. You've always felt steady. That hit hard. Steady. The word made my chest tighten. I never tried to be a savior or a stand-in dad. I just wanted to be someone she could count on. She finally met my eyes. I need help figuring out what's real. And just like that, I understood why she came in without knocking. But the thing is, when someone opens a door like that, you don't just step through. You brace yourself. Because whatever's on the other side might change everything. I nodded slowly. We'll figure it out. Together. And while I meant it, I knew deep down this wasn't going to be simple. Not just because of what she remembered, but because of what it might mean if she was right. I didn't sleep that night. After Emily left the room, after that quiet, painful moment where she finally let herself be seen, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every possible thought clawing its way to the surface. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She asked me to help her figure it out. There's a difference. And it scared the hell out of me because it meant we were heading into murky water, and neither of us knew how deep it went. Julia didn't notice anything was wrong the next morning, and I didn't tell her. Not yet. She was dealing with her own battles. A recent health scare had left her drained, physically and emotionally. She put on a brave face, but I'd seen the hospital bills, watched her sleep more during the day, struggled to remember things she used to breeze through. Adding one more weight to her shoulders didn't feel right. But as the days passed, Emily grew quieter. She skipped dinner more often. Spent hours in her room with her laptop open, scrolling through old photos, old messages. I caught a glimpse once, an old picture of her and Mark, taken when she was maybe 9. She closed the tab the moment she saw me looking. Then came the call. From Mark. I didn't answer the first time. He left a voicemail. Said he was just checking in, that he'd heard through the grapevine that Emily was having a hard time lately. I didn't like how he said her name, too familiar, too smooth. I played it twice, let the fake concern in his voice crawl under my skin. The second time he called, I picked up. He started off polite, then subtly tried to fish for information. She's mentioned feeling a little lost. It's natural, you know, that age, lots of emotions, old memories, sometimes people misremember things. Especially when they're young. That was all I needed to hear. You don't get to decide what she remembers, I said, keeping my voice flat. You stay away from her. Do you understand? He chuckled. You're not her father. No, I said. But I'm someone who gives a damn. I hung up before I could say something worse. That night, I told Emily about the call. Her face went pale, but then, something else. Anger. Not the usual quiet kind she kept to herself, but raw and shaking. He called you, she said, standing up, pacing. Like this is his story to control? That's exactly why we can't let him twist it. She sat back down, hands in her hair, breathing hard. What if I go to the police and they say it's just a memory? That there's no proof? What if it all backfires and I'm left looking crazy? I didn't have an easy answer. But I knew silence wasn't safety. Silence was his weapon. So we started digging. Old photos, old messages, names of people who might remember something. She even found an old diary entry, just a sentence, scribbled in messy handwriting, he hugged too long. It didn't feel right. It wasn't much. But it was a start. Meanwhile, Julia noticed something was off. She asked questions I couldn't answer honestly, yet. And Emily was walking a tightrope between opening up and shutting down again. The pressure was mounting. I could feel it. We were getting close to something. Either a breakthrough or a breakdown. And every step forward came with a heavier cost. It all came to a head 3 nights later. Emily hadn't been home all day. No texts. No calls. I waited, telling myself not to panic, but by 10:43 p.m., I was pacing the kitchen, phone in hand, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the house. Julia was already asleep upstairs, exhausted from her latest round of tests. I couldn't wake her, not without answers. Finally, the front door creaked open. Emily stepped in, hair windblown, hoodie zipped up to her chin. Her face was pale, mascara smudged. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. Where were you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She walked past me like she didn't hear. Dropped her bag on the floor. Sat on the couch and curled in on herself. He showed up, she said, barely audible. My stomach dropped. Who? Mark? She nodded. I was at that bookstore on 8th. I go there when I need to think. I guess he remembered. I walked over slowly. Did he say anything? He tried to pretend like nothing happened. Like we were just reconnecting. She let out a hollow laugh. He brought up that lake trip. The one where I started faking stomach aches so I wouldn't have to go again. I sat across from her, fists clenched in my lap. Did you tell him to leave? I tried. He wouldn't. Said I was misinterpreting things. Said I always was an emotional kid. My pulse was hammering. That's manipulation, Emily. You know that, right? She nodded. But it still made me doubt myself. I hated that. I hate that I felt small again. Then she looked up, and the way she looked at me, I'll never forget it. Like she was holding on by threads. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. I don't know if I'm strong enough to go through all of it again just to be told I'm making it up. I leaned forward. You don't have to go through it alone. That's the difference now. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. I need Mom to know. I need her to believe me. But if I tell her, and she doesn't, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Everything felt razor thin. Like one wrong word could cut everything open. Then came the knock. Not at the front door. The window. We both froze. Slowly, I turned my head. Through the curtains, a shadow moved past the glass. I stood. Quietly. Motioned for Emily to stay put. As I approached, the porch light clicked on automatically, and for a brief second, I saw him. Mark. Standing just outside, looking directly at the house. At us. He didn't knock again. Just stood there, like he was daring me to open the door. I didn't. Instead, I reached for my phone. This wasn't a conversation anymore. This was war. And it had just come to our doorstep. I dialed the police. Simple, calm. Told them a man was trespassing, that he was known to the family and unwelcome. They said they'd send a car. 10 minutes, maybe less. I stayed by the window. He was gone by the time I hung up. Emily didn't speak for a long time. She just watched me. Her breathing had slowed, but her eyes were locked on mine, wide and uncertain. Why would he come here? She finally asked. He wanted to scare you. Us. He knows the pressure's building. I sat next to her, trying to keep myself from shaking. I'd never hated someone like this before, not in a way that felt personal. But something in my gut still didn't sit right. His face out there, it hadn't looked desperate. Or angry. It looked confident. And that's what terrified me. The police came, took a statement, patrolled the block. Said they'd follow up. But we both knew what that meant, filed and forgotten unless something worse happened. The next morning, Julia was waiting for me in the kitchen. Coffee in hand. Her look wasn't casual. We need to talk, she said. I know something's going on. You've been different. Emily too. She hesitated. And I think it has something to do with Mark. I blinked. What makes you say that? She looked down at her cup, quiet for a moment. Then, because he called me. A week ago. The room spun. What? She nodded slowly. He said he was concerned about Emily. That she might be confused. He brought up things from when she was little, things I hadn't thought about in years. I felt heat rise in my chest. You didn't tell me. Because I didn't think it was anything, she said quickly. He sounded calm. Polite. Just worried. Worried? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then came the worst part. I told him to give her space, Julia admitted. But I didn't block him. I didn't want to stir anything up. Emily had just walked in. She'd heard the last part. You talked to him? Her voice cracked. You knew he reached out? Julia's face crumbled. I didn't know what he did. I didn't know it meant something bad. You didn't even ask me. The air thickened. Something shattered in the silence, something fragile that had been holding all of us together. Emily turned to me. You said we were in this together. We are. She shook her head. Then why does it feel like I'm the only one who knew the truth? Then she pulled something from her pocket. Her old phone. I found something last night, she said quietly. She handed it to me. The screen lit up with a video. A birthday party. Balloons, kids, laughing. Emily was there, maybe 10 years old. Mark stood behind her, hands on her shoulders a beat too long. He leaned in close, whispered something. The camera shifted, catching Julia in the background, watching. Frozen. Saying nothing. Emily whispered, she saw. She knew. And just like that, the story changed. The silence after Emily showed us that video was different. Not shocked silence. Knowing silence. The kind that settles over a room when the truth has nowhere left to hide. Julia's face went blank. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen, even after the video ended. I don't remember that moment, she said finally. But I remember that birthday. I remember feeling off. Like something was wrong, but I didn't want to make a scene. Emily was stone still. You didn't want to make a scene? Her voice was low, raw. You watched it happen, and you said nothing. I didn't understand what I was seeing. Julia's voice cracked, rising. I told myself it was nothing because I didn't want to believe the alternative. She broke off, covered her face with her hands. I failed you. It wasn't enough. But it was something. Emily didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself like armor. I needed you to protect me. And you looked away. I stepped between them, not to defend, not to divide, but to keep them from shattering in the same room. We can't change what happened, I said, but we can decide what happens next. That same night, we drove to the station. Emily made her statement. Brought the video. The diary page. The messages. They didn't promise action right away. But they listened. Took it seriously. That alone felt like a crack in the wall. In the weeks that followed, Julia went with her to therapy. Every session. Quiet at first, then slowly, tentatively, apologetic. Present. She didn't try to erase what she'd missed. She didn't excuse it. She just stayed. As for me, I stayed out of the way when needed. Stepped in when asked. I made sure Emily knew she didn't owe anyone silence anymore. Then came the hearing. Not a trial, not yet. Just a restraining order. But Mark showed up. In a pressed shirt, a lawyer by his side, still wearing that same calm, oily confidence like a mask. Until the video played. Until the judge looked at him, then looked at Emily, and said, "We believe you." That moment cracked something open in her. Not relief, something heavier. But it was real. Outside the courthouse, Emily stood quietly next to Julia and me. The sun was out. People walked past, normal lives moving forward like nothing had changed. I don't feel better, she said. I just feel lighter. Like I can breathe again. You don't have to be better, I said. You just have to be you. Free. She nodded. And then, just as we were walking toward the car, Julia stopped. She turned to Emily. There's something else, she said. Something I should have told you before. Emily frowned. Julia reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside, a photo. A letter. Old, worn. From Mark. Dated years before the incident. I kept this. I don't know why. I think I was afraid of what it meant. But if you want to take this further, really take him down, this might help. Emily stared at the letter, processing it. A slow, dawning fire returned to her eyes. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of finally being heard, and making sure no one else ever had to live in silence again. Some stories don't end with fireworks. They end with quiet moments, the kind you only notice because the storm has passed. It's been 5 months since that day outside the courthouse. Emily followed through. With the letter as evidence, and her therapist by her side, she gave another statement to investigators. And this time, it stuck. They reopened the case. Mark's lawyer backed out. The whispers stopped. People started listening. Julia's still making up for what she missed. She doesn't pretend to be the perfect mom now, just an honest one. She's shown up for every appointment, every call, every moment Emily needed her. And Emily? She's stronger than I think she even knows. Not because she fought back, but because she let the truth speak for her. That takes guts. We still have quiet nights. We talk more. Laugh again. It's not about moving on. It's about living forward, with scars, sure, but also with peace. And as for me? I've learned the most important thing I'll probably ever learn: being there doesn't mean fixing everything. Sometimes, it means standing still while someone you care about finds their own voice, and knowing when to speak up for them when it counts. This story wasn't about secrets. It was about truth, and what happens when someone finally chooses to say it out loud.